Hi everyone, I'm Pastor Dave. Today I want to talk about my favorite topic, religious and political hypocrisy. In fact, this really is like my mission of sorts. I want to just explain what I think, what I believe, and what I'm trying to do. There seems to be a modicum of interest in my channel and what's happening that I thought, okay, it's time to reveal all. Maybe somebody will care, maybe they won't. In either case, I can't see. Okay, so what I believe. And my first question is, of course, I'm a pastor. In the formal denominational sense, no. If I had to categorize my belief, it would have to be non-denominational Christian, but only because I love Jesus and the values that are attributed to Jesus. I won't even talk about Jesus, the person, just the character, if you will. So why am I a pastor? Why would I be a pastor if I'm not fully engaged in the literal word of God, and my goal being to keep people from sin? Well, I can't, because I don't believe that the God of Abraham is God. I have some sense about a pantheistic force, which of course, if you reject the God of Abraham as the true God, then you're an atheist. So just because you might have other ideas about like a prime mover or a pantheistic look at creation, you're an atheist. So even though I consider the possibility of a supreme entity, if it's not God, the God of Abraham, then I'm an atheist. So I'm an atheist who needs to be a pastor because he wants to share the message of Christ, very specific, very narrow message of Christ about the values of Christ that are attributed to Christ, or the values that are attributed to Christ, so I don't even get in trouble that way. Because it doesn't matter to me if Christ actually said these things, or even if he was real or not. I have no problem accepting the notion that Jesus was a real person. Whether he actually said the things in the Bible that he said or that are attributed to him, I'm not concerned about that. That's detail that doesn't matter. I'm more interested in just those basic values that I think could solve humanity's problems. And I'll just quickly refer to them, the values of non-judgment. How important is it to stop judging others? And how important is that going to be for the overall vision of peace? So everything is about peace, and I consider these values sort of progressive, not only politically, but just as they progress each one. You consider the more basic value of non-judgment to be the sort of primary or initial value that you have to teach yourself how to stop judging yourself and how to stop judging others. And when you can truly do that, then you can rise up to the next level, which is forgiveness, where you have to learn to try to forgive yourself and others, which will help you lead to love and being able to express that love through compassion, through your generosity of spirit, through, well, helping those in need. And all of that will benefit how you feel about yourself and how you feel about others. And all of that, if everybody loved themselves and loved each other, then we would have peace on earth. So that's the vision I'm talking about that I attribute to Christ. And I love it. I actually think there's something really powerful about it. And I want to share that. And although I'm not a formal pastor and Christian conservatives will call me a fraud, I think I have a right to express that. I mean, I certainly have a right constitutionally, but I think even as a pastor, because the idea of a pastor has been, well, you're just ordained. And you can get ordination just by going on the web. You go on the internet, you go to a site, you can become ordained. And it's a legitimate ordination because that ordination, in fact, I have it here. Here's a certificate of my ordination. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let's see, go forward. Yeah. Ooh, my God, why is it so zoom? Oh my God, I'm not really doing well at all here. Well, it is. All right, here we go. How was that? Is that right? Okay, that seems all right. Anyway, it says certificate of ordination, and they refer to me as Pastor Dave. So that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to say I'm a pastor because I wanted people to understand that I talk about Christianity, I talk about spirituality, and that, so my title is just, however, you know, inadequately secured in the mind of the Christian conservative, I can defend my position by saying, well, I cannot choose a denominational approach so long as in the training to become a pastor, one would have to acknowledge that the Bible is the literal word of God and that it's not subject to some kind of interpretation and you can't change things. And I can't go there. I can't. But of course, in the conservative Christian mind, it's all or nothing. You either believe everything or nothing. And that's not right. That's just wrong. I think there's value in cherry picking. I do feel that you can pick out those kind of beneficial passages that help you understand yourself, especially if you're pursuing the 4 values that Christ wanted us to embrace so that we can make a better world and that we could actually bring peace on earth. That was his vision. You can argue, and of course Christian conservatives will give me chapter and verse because they're very good at memorizing the Bible, but what they're not realizing is that in so doing, they've, kept themselves from really discerning truth from lies, facts from fiction. The fact that you know every chapter and every verse of the creation story, I know I said story, but that's proof to me that you need to make things so literal that you reject the science that shows you creationism is not possible and did not happen, and that the creationism story is, in fact, a story. Its purpose was to just sort of start the whole process. And of course, it was to give the impression that the God of Abraham was so powerful that he did all this. And not only did it all, but he did it in 6 short days. And apparently that was exhausting, and he had to take the 7th day off. So, no problem, but it cannot be seriously taken as truth. But Christian conservatives who insist on the literalism of the Bible insist that it is true, in spite of overwhelming evidence to the contrary. Unbelievable scientific evidence just telling us exactly how old the universe is. Not exactly, but it's billions of years old. And it's a huge existence. I mean, and to think that all of this happened in 6 days, some 6,500 years ago, is just so profoundly wrong. And why you put or insist that that is the truth makes it clear to me that you're not capable of embracing real truth. So your truth is all based in deception, lies, or fantasy, something that you feel, whatever it is that's driving you, you feel a need to embrace the Bible as literal truth. And it makes no sense. There's no value in doing that. In fact, it harms you because you end up not distinguishing facts from fiction, truth from lies. And without discernment, you really have a hard time living your day-to-day life. So that's why I can't be a God of Abraham type of pastor. I have to be me. I have to be a pastor who can siphon through the Bible and pick out the things that I need to help me grow spiritually and help me develop a relationship with the Spirit. And that's really what my mission is to help people recognize that their spirituality can benefit from a few passages in the Bible, but also it gives real purpose. I mean, if you follow the values of the Christian values that are attributed to Christ, the ones I named earlier, non-judgment, forgiveness, love, and peace, that can give you great personal purpose in life. So that's really what my mission is about. I can't live with the literalism because it actually keeps me in deception. And I want to live in truth. And although you pride yourselves on memorizing everything and can recall chapter and verse of anything, it's clear that all of that memorization and all of that referring back to the Bible has blinded you to truth, to real truth. You have your biblical truth and you can espouse it, and of course you're not going to be able to hear anything outside the Bible. And in so doing, once again, you're cheating yourself out of real spiritual development. And you're cheating yourself out of, the just understanding truth and coming to terms with the Bible as not just story, but as, a flawed human endeavor to try to talk about these things that normally you don't really see anywhere else. So in that sense, that's what I love about the Bible. They're talking about spirituality and God and all these kind of things, which are great, but that's really just sort of a framework for a conversation. It isn't that you're supposed to memorize everything and just take everything as literal truth and to not be able to make any kind of discerning judgment about anything in your life. And that's a problem. And it leads to political hypocrisy. You cannot act as a Christian if much of your politics goes in opposition of your Christian values. And that's no more clear than the relationship that conservative Christians have with the LGBTQIA plus community. The idea that you are Christian conservatives are angry that the Supreme Court decided that employers cannot fire somebody if they find out that they are LGBTQIA plus people. Why would that be a Christian value? Why would you say that? Why would that even matter to you? Why can't you leave this community alone? I know the argument, I hear it all the time. We're trying to save their soul. We're trying to take them to turn away from evil, and so that they can enjoy eternal salvation. And that's your answer. To deny them employment, deny them means to take care of themselves. It doesn't make sense. And contrary to what you think, you are not saving their souls. I'm not sure what the true motivation is. My guess is it comes from a place of fear. Since you live in a place where God is to be feared, and that in order to survive the oppression of God, you know that you either obey or you will be punished. And that becomes your central perspective on everything, on your personal life, on your political views, on anything that you have to do. it is all, your whole sense of justice is that if people disobey God, God will punish them. So the punishment or whatever suffering they have to endure is the direct result of God's punishment, of you sinning, of you disobeying God. And that very simple-minded approach completely eliminates your ability to figure out things for yourself and for others. And it seems terribly presumptuous and arrogant that you would decide if somebody should be denied employment because they are considered sinners or that they have sinned. And if we take that logic, that, you know, the suffering that someone would endure because they're fired because of who they are, and you take that logic one step further, we say, well, what about turning other people away from other sins, like adultery? Why isn't there some kind of political action out there to make sure that every adulterer who commits adultery is fired? How come that doesn't happen? I mean, adultery, that's a top 10 sin. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Great. It's so powerful as part of the 10 Commandments. And yet, us adulterers get a pass. Yes, I'm an adulterer, so I get a pass. Therefore, you should start immediately. Talk to your senators, your congressional representatives, and immediately institute some kind of political action where from now on, if an employer finds out that someone committed adultery, they should be fired. Or a divorce, how about that? The stain of divorce is huge. It's lifelong. If you're truly Christian and you believe Christ said, hey, marriage is between a man and a woman, and if you break that bond, that's permanent. That's a permanent sin. Then you should be fired. All divorcees should be fired. They should not be allowed to have employment. I mean, that's the logic you're implying here, or employing here. I'm implying. I hope you understand the inference. I'm trying to be as direct as possible. So you can continue to live in the hypocrisy of just cherry picking who you think should be punished for their sins and letting all these other sinners go free or go without punishment. So I don't understand. I thought, you know, Jesus or God was going to take care of the punishment and you didn't have to do anything. You just go about living your life, try to do the best you can. If you want to live a life where you have to be so strictly obedient to God's law that you fear him for the rest of your life, well, that's up to you. I allow you that. I give you that. But please leave the rest of us alone. That's my problem. And I don't understand how you can continue to live in that contradiction, knowing that Jesus asked us to stop judging others. So why do you continue to judge the LGBTQIA plus community? Hey, I said that pretty well. Anyway, I don't understand it. Why you have to insist that this community has to be singled out and obstructed. You constantly want to obstruct or interfere with their life. You're not interested in saving their soul. You're just so afraid of God, and you've decided that that has to be your mission. But you're not doing your full mission. If that's true, then why aren't you picking out other sinners and making it illegal for them and making it impossible for them to even keep a job? Why not make the adulterer's life a living hell? Why not make the divorcee's life a living hell? Why select out this community? Why select the sexual alternative community to serve as an example of the kind of power and punishment of God? This is why you should fear God, because other Christians are going to harm you. It's not good enough. It's not good enough for you to live in that kind of hypocrisy. Thank God you don't do that to everybody. I just don't want you to do it to anybody. So leave us alone. Stop worrying about our sin, just worry about your own. That's all I ask. And stop making it more difficult. So get rid of the political advocacy to turn our civil government into some kind of Old Testament instrument to serve the God of fear and serve as the punishers. I know we need certain laws, because when you have certain laws that harm people, I mean, obviously, rape and murder, those kind of things, that's where civil law makes sense. And it's not like those ideas were religious ideas first. Communities long before the Jewish, the Old Testament or the Judaic writings were written, plenty of societies, Egypt, Hammurabi, all Babylon, all these other places understood that we don't want to have a society where we murder each other. So those laws made sense. Making a law to deny the LGBTQIA plus community is just wrong. And it's not fair. And it's singled out. You are singling out this community. If you really were concerned about sinners, then you would apply the same logic to every single one, and every one of those other sinners. You really want to turn our society into the Handmaid's Tale? Really? Does that sound in any way like a Christian vision of peace on earth and love and forgiveness? It doesn't. So yeah, I'm a pastor. Yep, I'm an online pastor. But I tell you, my vision is far better than any kind of literalist pastor that gets their divinity degree from some school. So it's not credible that divinity trained pastors are somehow better. It's not like being a surgeon. If I told you, yeah, I went online, I went onto this website and I paid a few dollars, I filled out a few forms, and I get to be a surgeon. Yeah, you should be very concerned with that. But I think it's interesting that the various states and probably throughout countries all over the world will recognize your online ordination certificate and allow you to marry people, you know, perform kind of like justice of the peace type function. So because you have your certificate of ordination, you can do these kind of personal ceremonial stuff, legal ceremonial stuff. So that is fascinating to me. That's how little states regard a formal pastor training. They say, here, sure. You have your certificate of ordination? Yeah, you can. You can marry people. You can do the kind of functions that a pastor might do. Sure, you can preach to people. Yeah, you can have your own little church. See, I can do all those things too. I don't have to have that kind of formal education, which I personally think is what's keeping this country oppressed. That's why we don't have a strong medical system. That's why Medicare for all is not a reality, and it should be. Why in the world would a Christian not want to make sure everybody has health care and can afford health care? Why wouldn't you want that? Why would that in any way make sense to you to deny people medical care and just access, to have it be affordable? And of course, the conservative in you said, well, that's going to be too expensive. Well, that's not proven to be true. Studies have shown that it could be as costly as what we currently have, or even less so. There could be, but the big thing is that everyone would be covered. And there would be no upper gap. You wouldn't have to be considered. You wouldn't have to worry about whether they're going to take you into a hospital if you don't have the right coverage. Those kind of things are silly to compare or to think that's a reason not to provide medical care, even if it did cost more. The truth is, it's far better that we cover everyone than to leave 20, 30 million people without coverage. And it's so inefficient. I think we really could save money once we get our act together. And a good conservative Christian would be all on board for the Medicare for All plan. And they just would be. There's no reason not to be. As a Christian who has the values of love and compassion and wants to reach out and help others, and you have a spirit of generosity within you, you would want to do that. You would want to do that. So I don't understand. I don't accept the cherry picking argument to think that I'm just picking out the best things that I like about the Bible, when in fact, conservative Christians are doing the exact same thing. They are completely avoiding or ignoring their whole Christian value legacy of the New Testament. So talk about cherry picking. You are cherry picking those things that identify sin, and somehow your justification for intervening in people's sinful lives and taking them to task so that they can be scared of God or else be punished. If they're going to be punished, if they don't obey, they will be punished. And that's the reason why you should live in fear of God. Because living in fear of God will keep you from disobeying God. And then if you don't disobey God, you won't be punished and you won't have any suffering. So that's supposed to account for all the suffering in the world. Well, it doesn't. It doesn't account for anything. It is a meaningless idea that somehow you're saving people's souls. Mind your own business. If you get some kind of spiritual connection with God and you find it helpful to live according to that fear of God, obedient or be punished mentality, so be it. You are welcome to do that. You have the right to do that. But when you start to cross over and demand that people think the same way, and then you take political action to make sure that they do think the same way, then you cross the line. And you're not serving anyone at all. And you're certainly not bringing a spirit of generosity and compassion to our world. And that's what you should be doing. So I'm hoping that this can actually trigger interest. And I hope I can talk to conservative Christians about their ideas about politics. I would like to have a real conversation, maybe have a Zoom forum or some kind of conversational forum online, of course, where we can talk about these things, where there are these kind of hypocrisies. And I just want to know why. And I would like to think you would want to know why. And you would like to have a group of us get together and talk about it. And then we film it, share it with others, and that conversation can continue elsewhere. I love it. I hope you'll love it too. I hope you'll help see the vision that I have and see the vision that you should be living by so that we can do all these kind of things. So I want conservative Christians to not take my lecturing as an act of evil, that this is the work of the devil, that this comes from the pit of hell, but really consider the possibility that you're not living your fullest Christian life. I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe, because I want this message to be a little bit wider than what I'm doing now. I'm kind of an amateur right now, but with your help, we can really establish something pretty good. So thank you very much, and take care.